Okay, students. So we are going to discuss my childhood. This is written by APJ Abdul Kalam. Okay, he was the 11th president of our country. He became president in 2002. This is an extract from his autobiography, Wings of Fire. Okay, so we will get all the details about the former president's life, about his childhood, about his education, okay, and information about his parent, all these details, his contribution, okay. So that we will read in this particular lesson. He was born on 15th October 1931 and he died on 27th July 2015 at the age of 83. Then in 2002 he became the president, 11th president of our country. I have already informed. Then he was his early education he took from Rameswaram, was born in Rameswaram, Tamil Nadu, and he took his education, higher education from Madras Institution of Technology, MIT Madras. Then he performed certain duties there in DRDO, ISRO, then civilian space program. He is termed as the missile man of our country, and he played a significant role there in Pokhran nuclear test program second, which was conducted in the year 1998. So a great contribution, and you will come certain details, you will come to know certain details about his life, as this is an extract from his autobiography, Wings of Fire. Okay, so before you read what is given, can you think of any scientist who have also been statesman? Statesman, you write the meaning. Statesman, that is a man who is a leader in national or international affairs. A person who is a leader in national and international affairs. So he was a great statesman. Then APJ Abdul Kalam, whose project in space, defense, and nuclear technology guided India into the 21st century, became our 11th president in 2002. He became the 11th president of our country in 2002. And before that, he was having a great background, as we have discussed, that significantly contributed in our space technology, in our defense, okay, and our nuclear technology. Then in his autobiography, what is autobiography? That is a self-written biography, a self-written account of a person's life. That is autobiography. Biography, that the account of a person's life that is written by someone else. Autobiography, account about a person's life written by himself. So in his autobiography, Wings of Fire, you remember the name of APJ Abdul Kalam's autobiography, Wings of Fire. He speaks of his childhood. He speaks of his childhood, and this particular lesson is an extract from his autobiography. So all what we have discussed so far, children, is that clear to you? Have you understood?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
So the lesson goes like this. I was born into a middle class Tamil family in the island town of Rameswaram in the erstwhile Madras. Erstwhile means former. So, who is I, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. I was born into a middle class Tamil family. Dr. Kalam is saying that I was born in a middle class Tamil family in the island town of Rameswaram, in the erstwhile Madras state. At that time, uh, it was the Madras state under the Britishers. My father, Zainullah Abdin, had neither much formal education nor much wealth. He is telling about his father, that the name of his father is Zainullah Abdin, his father's name was, and he was not having much formal education, at the time much wealth. Despite these disadvantages, he possessed great innate wisdom, but he was having great innate. Innate means inborn. He was having great innate wisdom and a true generosity. He was having a true generosity, that is open heartedness, willing to help everyone. He had an ideal helpmate in my mother Asima, and my mother Asima was an ideal helpmate of my father. I do not recall the exact number of people she fed every day. A great many people my mother used to feed there in my house every day, but I am quite certain that far more outsiders ate with us than all the members of our family put together. More than the members of my family, my mother used to feed a number of peoples from outside also. So this is about APJ Abdul Kalam's background, where he was born. He was born there in the temple town of Rameswaram, island town of Rameswaram. His father's name, his mother's name, all that you have to remember. I was one of many children. There were many brothers and sisters. I was one of many children, a short boy with rather undistinguished looks. My height was not that much. I was short boy with rather undistinguished looks, born to tall and handsome parents. My parents, they were very handsome, very tall. We lived in our ancestral house. Ancestral means of forefathers. Okay, so we used to live there in our ancestral house, which was built in the middle of the 19th century. It was built in the middle of 19th century. It was a fairly large pakka house made of limestone and a brick. About his house where he used to live, on the Mosque Street in Rameswaram. Our house, this Pakka house, was there in the Mosque Street of Rameswaram. My austere father used to avoid all inessential comforts and luxuries. My austere father means very simple, strict, and severe. He was very simple, but where required at that time, he was very strict. So the meaning is already given. My austere father used to avoid all inessential comforts and luxuries. My father used to avoid all the luxuries in essential expenditure. But what that were required, which that were required, he was always willing to provide. However, all the necessities were provided for, all what we required, he used to provide everything to us. In fact, I would say mine was a very secure childhood. My childhood was a very secure childhood, a very protected childhood I had, both materially and emotionally. Materially means as far as wealth, money, all these are concerned, we were having enough as per our requirement, as far as our requirement was concerned. And emotionally also, I used to get all love, affection, care, patronage, that of my mother and father. So this you have understood about his background, the name of his father, his mother, okay, about his house, the town from where he used to belong. Okay, all that you have to remember, children. Then the Second World War broke in 1939. Now he is recalling memories that of his childhood. In the Second World War broke out in 1931 when I was 8 years old. Second World War broke out in 1939. At that time, APJ Abdul Kalam was 8 years old. For reasons I have never been able to understand, a sudden demand of tamarind seeds erupted in the market, and there was a sudden rise, eruption there in the demand of tamarind seeds there in the market. I don't know why. I used to collect the seeds and sell them to a provision shop on Mosque Street. I used to collect them and I used to sell them there in a provisions store. A day's collection would fetch the princely sum of 1 anna. I used to get this very good sum, very good amount. Princely sum, the meaning is given, generous amount. You write. Okay, so there was a great demand during the time when the Second World War broke in 1939, and I used to collect tamarind seeds as there was a great demand. I used to sell them there at the provision store, and I used to get a very generous amount after selling them. So likewise, I started contributing there in my family income right from the beginning. My brother-in-law Jalaluddin would tell the stories about the war, which I would later attempt to trace in the headlines of Dinamani. Our area, being isolated, was completely unaffected by the war. Okay, my brother-in-law, it's okay. So my brother-in-law Jalaluddin, his brother-in-law's name Jalaluddin. My brother-in-law Jalaluddin would tell stories about the war. He used to tell me stories about the war, which I would later attempt to trace in the headlines of Dinamani. Dinamani is the name of a newspaper. So the brother-in-law used to tell about all the happenings which was going there in the world, all the news headlines, and then he used to confirm, he used to found all these news headlines there in the newspaper. Our area, he is saying, it was isolated, it was separated, and it was unaffected by the war. But soon India was forced to join the Allied forces. In the Second World War, there were Allied powers, Axis powers. Allied powers means the armies that of UK, USA, and Russia. The armies of UK, United Kingdom, Russia, and USA. And on the other side, Germany was there, and Italy was there. So Allied forces, and something like a state of emergency was declared. Our country also joined on behalf of the Allied powers, and a state of emergency was declared in the country. The first casualty came in the form of suspension of the train halt at Rameswar station. And first happening, first outcome of this joining of India in the war came in the form of suspension of a train's halt there at Rameswaram. There was a stoppage of the train there at Rameswaram, but then this train was stopped from this station. The newspaper now had to be bundled and thrown out from the moving train on the Rameswaram road between Rameswaram and Dhanuskodi. So now the newspaper was not thrown at the particular station, rather than it was thrown in between Rameswaram and Dhanuskodi. The newspaper, the name Dinamani newspaper, he used to collect it. The force that forced my cousin Samsuddin, who distributed newspapers in Rameswaram, to look for a helping hand to catch the bundles, and as if naturally I filled the slot. Samsuddin, who used to my cousin Samsuddin, who used to collect the bundles of newspaper, he was engaged in that work. Okay, so now he was in need of some additional help, and I was suitable for that work. So I provided my help to Samsuddin in collecting newspapers, the bundles of newspapers in between where the place from where at these were thrown. I filled the slot. Samsudin helped me earn my first wages. Half a century later, I can still feel the surge of pride in earning my own money for the first time. I earned my own money for the first time, and there was a surge of pride. I felt proud of myself that yes, I have earned money. And when this came opportunity at the time of World War in 1939, when World War broke, okay, after some time, India also joined the Allied powers, and as the first outcome, the train which used to stop at Rameswaram, that halt was suspended. Okay, then the newspapers were thrown at an in between place between Rameswaram and the other town, Dhanushkodi. Okay, so my brother, cousin Samsudin was in need of a help. I provided, and Samsudin also provided me some money for this, for performing this task. So this is how, for the first time, I earned money, and I felt delighted and happy. Okay. Before this, the example how he earned was that of the tamarind seeds. Every child is born with some inherited characteristics. Inherited means acquired from ancestors. Acquired from. So every child is born with some inherited characteristics that is acquired from parents into a specific socio-economic and emotional environment, and these reflects the environment, the socio-economic and emotional environment, and trend in certain ways by figures of authority. I inherited honesty and self-discipline from my father. So what I inherited, what were these inherited qualities in me? I inherited honesty and discipline. Honesty and discipline from, so you just go through it. So I inherited honesty and self-discipline from my father. My father, I inherited honesty and self-discipline. From my mother, I inherited faith in goodness and deep kindness. And so did my three brothers and sisters. My brothers and sisters, they also inherited the same quality. I also inherited these qualities from my mother and father. From my father, I inherited honesty and self-discipline, and from my mother, I inherited faith in goodness and a deep kindness. These you have to remember, children, all these things, every single line. I had three close friends in my childhood. I used to have three close friends. These were Ramananda Sastri. You have to remember the name of APJ Abdul Kalam's uh, childhood friends. One is Ramananda Sastri, then Arvindan and Shiva Prakashan. Who were these? Ramananda Sastri, Arvindan, and Shiva Prakashan. All these boys were from Orthodox Hindu families. They were from Orthodox. Orthodox means conservative. Okay. So Orthodox means conservative, traditionalist. Okay. Those who abide by traditions, those who go with the traditions, and those who are not liberal enough to have a change, those who don't want to change. So Orthodox means conservative, traditionalist, and opposite to it is liberal, who is open minded, who is liberal, who is easily accepting the change. Okay. And Orthodox means who don't want to accept the new things, and they used to abide by the traditions. So Ramananda Sastri, Arvindan, and Shiva Prakasan. All these boys were from Orthodox Hindu families. All they were from Orthodox Hindu families. As children, none of us ever felt any differences among ourselves because of our religious differences and upbringing. But as children, we all were close friends. We were not having any differences of opinions. Okay. Ramananda Sastri was the son of Pakshi Lakshmana Sastri. Now, out of these, Ramananda Sastri was son of Pakshi Lakshmana Sastri, the high priest of Rameswaram temple. Ramananda Sastri was the child of the high priest of Rameswaram temple, and the name of his father was Pakshi Lakshmana Sastri. Then later he took over the priesthood of Rameswaram temple. Later he also became the priest of Rameswaram temple. After father, Arvindan went into business of arranging transport for visiting pilgrims. Arvindan, what task he took? Arvindan went into business of arranging transport for visiting pilgrims. All these persons, all those travelers who used to visit this holy place, he used to arrange a transport for them. And Shiva Prakasan became a catering contractor for the Southern Railways. Catering contractor for the Southern Railways. So who were his childhood friends? These childhood friends were Ramananda Sastri. Yes, children, tell about the names. Ramananda Sastri. Then next, Arvindan. Ramananda Sastri, Arvindan, and Shiva Prakasan. And all these three were from Orthodox Hindu families. These children, they never had any kind of differences. Okay, and they used to live together with a lot of love, affection. Okay, and at the later stage of their life, this Ramananda, he became Ramananda Sastri, he became the priest of Rameswaram temple. Arvindan went into the business of arranging transport for the pilgrims visiting the Rameswaram temple, and Shiva Prakasan became the catering agent, this catering contractor there in the Southern Railways. So remember all these details. Now, during the annual Sri Sita Ram Kalyanam ceremony, our family used to arrange boats with a special platform for carrying idols of Lord from the temple to the marriage site. He is saying that what work his family used to do at the time of annual Sri Sita Ram Kalyanam ceremony. In Sita Ram Kalyanam ceremony, his family used to arrange boats with a special platform to carry the statue of Lord Ram to the marriage site situated in middle of the pond called Rama Tirtha, which was near our house. Events from Ramayana and from the life of the prophet were the bad time stories my mother used to tell. APJ Abdul Kalam has written that his family was not having any particular faith like Hindus and Muslims. They used to adore, respect every religion. And he's saying that my mother used to tell me the bad time stories at night, that of Ramayana as well as that of from the life of Prophet. And our family used to provide help there in the ritual ceremonies of Hindu religion. One day when I was in the 5th standard at Rameswaram elementary school, at the basic school of Rameswaram, when I was in 5th class, when I was in primary class, a new teacher came to our class. A new teacher came. I used to wear a cap which marked me as a Muslim. Due to my cap, I was identified that I was a Muslim child, and I always sat in the front row next to Ramananda Sastri. I used to sit there on the front row, who wore the sacred thread. He, sacred means holy. So a new teacher joined. Okay, I used to sit along with Ramananda. I used to wear a Muslim cap. Ramananda used to wear a holy thread that was clearly marking that he is from a Hindu family. The new teacher could not stomach a Hindu priest's son sitting with a Muslim boy. This was quite unbearable for the new teacher to see us sitting together. In accordance with our social ranking, as the new teacher saw it, I was asked to go and sit on the back bench. The new teacher asked me that you have to sit there at the back bench. I felt very sad, and so did Ramananda Sastri. I felt very bad. Ramananda Sastri, my friend, also felt very bad. He looked utterly downcast as I shifted to my seat in the last row. Okay, he also looked very downcast, that is very depressed, very sad. He also became very sad when I was asked to sit there in the last row. The image of him weeping when I shifted to the last row left a lasting impression on me. When I was asked to sit there on the last row, he started crying, and that image of Ramananda Sastri had a long lasting impact on my mind, that how much my friend used to love me. After school, we went home and told our respective parents about the incident. We reported to our parents. Lakshmana Sastri, Ramananda Sastri's father, the priest at the Rameswaram temple, summoned the teacher. He summoned the teacher. Summoned means called. So he called the teacher, and in our presence told the teacher that he should not spread the poison of social inequality and communal intolerance in the minds of innocent children, that he should not spread the poison of communalism there in the minds of young children. He bluntly asked the teacher to either apologize or quit the school and the island. He asked him to quit the school. He should not spread the poison of such kind of things there in the young minds, the school and the island. Not only did the teacher regret his behavior, but the strong sense of conviction Lakshmana Sastri conveyed ultimately reformed this young teacher. But what sense, what teaching was given to this teacher by Lakshmana Sastri that changed the rest of his life, and he also now became a changed person. Uh, Conviction means a strong opinion or belief. So his belief for the rest of his life was changed, and he also stopped believing in such kind of narrow-minded things. Okay, so children, all what we have discussed so far about Abdul Kalam's life, that you have understood or not? Yes, students?
Understood, sir.
Yeah, what we have discussed so far in exercise questions, when we will discuss all these questions, you will find that what happened one day when a new teacher joined. Okay, who were his friends, APJ Abdul Kalam's friend during school time. Okay, what they became, what profession they adopted at the later stage of life, when APJ Abdul Kalam earned his first money. Okay, how he felt at that time, name of his father and mother, all this you should. On the whole, the small society of Rameswaram was very rigid in terms of segregation of different social groups. Okay, so on the whole, the small society of Rameswaram was very rigid, very complex in terms of the segregation of different social groups. Was there were different social groups. However, my science teacher, Siva Subramanya Iyer, though an Orthodox Brahmin with a very conservative wife, he was an Orthodox Brahmin with a very conservative means Orthodox wife, was something of a rebel. He was something of a rebel, and he used to raise his voice against the existing traditions. He did his best to break social barriers so that people from varying backgrounds, varying means a different, my this teacher, the name of the teacher, Subramanyam Iyer, science teacher, he used to raise his voice against the social barriers. He used to spend hours with me and would say, Kalam, I want you to develop so that you are on par with the highly educated people of big cities. I want to develop you that much that you can become equivalent to the students that of big cities. One day, this teacher, the name of the teacher is Subramaniam Iyer. One day, this teacher invited APJ Abdul Kalam to his home. One day he invited me to his home for a meal. His wife was horrified at the idea of a Muslim boy. Now his wife, she was horrified. Why? With the idea that a Muslim boy will come to their house and will eat there in their kitchen. So, of a Muslim boy being invited to dine in her ritually pure kitchen, she refused to serve me in her kitchen. The teacher's wife said that I will not serve him there in kitchen. Siva Subramaniam Iyer was not perturbed. Perturbed means he was not disturbed at this. Nor did he get angry with his wife, but instead served me with his own hands and sat down beside me to eat his meal. He served, wife denied. He served me with his own hands. He sat along with me. He ate with me. His wife watched us from behind the kitchen door. I wondered whether she had observed any difference in the way I ate rice, drank water, or cleaned the floor after the meal. When I was leaving his house, Siva Subramaniam Iyer invited me to join him for dinner again the next weekend. Again, my teacher invited me that Kalam join us the next weekend for dinner. Observing my hesitation, I was hesitant. Why I was hesitant? Because I thought that what the wife of teacher will think. Observing my hesitation, he told me not to get upset, saying once you decide to change the system, such problems have to be confronted, have to be addressed. Okay, if you will go against the system, if you want to change some existing order, then obviously some problems will come. You have to bear the problems, and slowly and
Yes,
gradually
sir.
the system will be changed. Okay, it will take some time. When I visited his house the next week, Siva Subramaniam Iyer's wife took me inside her kitchen and served me food with her own hands. And next time when I visited, there was a change there in the approach of my teacher's wife. She welcomed me, she took me there in the kitchen, and she served me food with her hands. Okay, so now she was changed, and this was due to the step taken by the teacher. Okay, then the Second World War was over, and India's freedom was eminent. Eminent. The Second
Yes,
World
sir.
War. Second World War was over, and India was likely to get freedom. It was certain that we are going to get freedom. Indians will build their own India, declared Gandhiji. Gandhiji also declared that Indians will build their own India. As you remember in history, you have studied Quit India moment in 1942. So the final call was given that Britishers, they have to leave our country and India will be of Indians. The whole country was filled with the unprecedented optimism. Optimism means hope, and unprecedented means which was seen never before, something that has been seen never before. So there was an unprecedented optimism. People were hopeful, and for what they were hopeful, that we will get our freedom. They were hopeful about freedom. The whole country was filled with unprecedented optimism. I asked my father for permission to leave Rameswaram and study at the district headquarters in Ramnanthapuram. I asked my father that now I have to leave Rameswaram and I have to go to the district headquarters for higher education. Then
Yes, sir.
he told me as if thinking aloud. My father told to me, Abul, I know you have to go away to grow. You have to go away. You have to go to the district headquarters for higher studies. You have to leave this place. Does The seagull not fly across the sun, but that is the very nature of life. Seagull means the sea sparrow. Does the seagull not fly across the sun alone and without a nest? Everyone has to make effort. Either it may be a bird, a human being. They have to, at certain point of time, they have to leave their places, and that is very much required for learning. If you have to learn, you have to leave your place. You people also will go for higher studies to other cities. He quoted Khalil Gibran to my hesitant mother. When my mother became very protective, she asked me, she was very much hesitant that if I will be able to take care of myself at the district headquarters. So my father quoted Khalil Gibran to my hesitant mother, your children are not your children. Uh, they are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. Your children, after some stage, they don't remain your children. They remain the children of society. They have to serve the society. They have to serve the entire mankind. Okay, and that will happen when they will acquire enough knowledge, and they will become a talented resource for the nation. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. They develop their own thinking, they develop their own thoughts, they develop their own way of life, for they have their own thoughts. So, children, this is uh, an extract. The lesson is an extract from APJ Abdul Kalam's life, our 11th president. And in this, you have came to know that what kind of childhood he had, okay, where he was born and brought up, about his parent, what was their way of thinking, how they nurtured his personality, okay, then who were his friends during the school time, what were his religious views, what were religious views of his parent, okay, and then what kind of the political structure was there at that time, and then finally about his higher studies. He left his this native town, all these. Okay, so I hope, children, you have understood what we have discussed. Yes, students, you have understood or not?
Very
Understood,
much.
sir.
Yeah, you just go
Yes,
through
sir.
it, just understand it well, and then in the next class we will discuss about the question answers. Okay, so you go through the question answers, okay, and in the next class when we will discuss it, you should provide your quick response, prompt response. Okay, this will happen when you will go through it. You yourself also go through the lesson, read it again. Okay, then your learning will be enhanced, will be permanent,
Okay,
and
sir.
then we will discuss the question answers. Okay, so this class comes to an end here. Okay, students.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, children.